Hi everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Inessa and I'm an indie author and I publish under the pen name A. Sage. I write YA fantasy, sci-fi, and pretty much anything paranormal. And in today's video, we are going to be talking about character arcs, why they're important, what they are, and some tips I have for you on how to create them and how to work with them. I don't know if you have seen the other previous episodes. If you have, thank you for watching. If you haven't, make sure you go ahead and watch those over there. But I do have an author resource library that I've put together for any author out there that needs a bit of, not guidance, but maybe some plotting sheets, some beats to think about, a few worksheets, some planners and things like that. And every time that I do a video here that might need some kind of worksheet, I will be uploading that worksheet to that resource library. I do have a video already posted so you can see what is already on there in the resource library and how you can sign up to get your free access to it. And one of those things is a character art worksheet. And so I figured today we should talk about character arcs because they're important. They're pretty important. And not a lot of people that's not true. A lot of people do stress about them. I stress about them a lot. But I think there's some misconceptions about character arcs. And I think that they sound very scary when you first think about them, when you're first starting out as an author. I remember when I first started plotting, just the idea of thinking of a character arc and creating this whole other person was very, very nerve-wracking to me. Like it seemed like some kind of scientific, almost, I don't even know, like formula you had to follow, when really it's quite as simple as just figuring out who your character is and how their development in the story works with your plot, really. And so to start with, what is a character arc, right? A character arc is the path that your character takes over the course of the story, who they are at the beginning, and who they end up at the end, and everything that happens in between. That's their character arc. It's supposed to show their growth in one way or another. And a character arc should really progress naturally with the story structure and with your plot. So when you're working on your character arc, you have to really think about like your genre, because different genres have different ways of moving along the plot. And so your character arc will also depend on the genre. There's 4 main kind of character arcs, types of character arcs that there are. There's the transformational character arc, which is when a regular person goes to become a hero, they transform. There is the positive character arc, and that requires an experience of positive change. And so your character has to change from someone who is either kind of or someone unlikable to someone who is more positive, somebody who is better. There's the negative character arc, wherein your character will change from being good to being bad or evil. Villains oftentimes have negative character arcs as their backstory, or just generally characters. When you're working on a series, a lot of times you will have your character go into these really dark, negative moments. They might do things they normally wouldn't do. That's a negative character arc. They're developing in a negative way. There's a negative change in them. And then the last one is the static or the flat character arc. And that is pretty much like your character just flatlines. They don't change. These are characters like James Bond, where everything around them changes. The plot changes, the story changes, but they remain the same character. They're that trusted character. We know what to expect with them because they're always the same. They don't change. And that's a static character arc. So when you're thinking about your character arcs and when you start kind of developing the arc for your main characters or whatever characters you're working on, there are 3 things you should really think about. You want to think about your character's goals. So what is it that they want? Then you want to think about what their lie is. Why is it that they think they can't get what they want? What is the lie that they tell themselves about themselves, of why they can't achieve their goal, of why they can't get what they want, of why they might not deserve what they want? So there's like always a certain lie that people tell themselves, and thus characters tells themselves, of why they can't achieve something or do something or be great or be better. And then you want to think about their truth. And that is a rejection of that lie. That's like a straight out, no, that lie is wrong. And your character embraces who they truly are inside, despite the lie. They understand the lie is a lie. And who they really are is this whole other person that can achieve that goal, right? And so you can see how your character's arc throughout the story is basically just to work through the three of these. They're going to start with like their goal. They're going to tell themselves a lie of what they can't get there. And then throughout the story and everything that happens in the story, they're going to fight against that lie until they finally get to who they truly are when they grow as a person, right? And that's really more like the transformational and positive character arc. If you're working on a negative character arc, you're kind of going to basically flip them in a way where their final transformational like being is really just being a bad person or like a negative, evil kind of person, somebody who's more of a downer than what they started with. So you want to think about that. But for the most part, if you're writing like fantasy, if you're writing more positive kind of stories, you usually will have a positive arc change. Your character will grow throughout the story, and readers want to see your character grow and become somebody else, somebody greater than who they started out with, right? Just like their circumstances and the plot changes, your character will change with those circumstances. And some of the more tips that I have are to think about the external and internal goals that your character might have when you're working on their arcs. Because you might have this internal goal, like let's say they want to just defeat the bad guy, right? And that's your main goal for them. Like they need to protect the people they love, and to do that they must defeat whoever the villain is, right? But their external goal could be, well, it's like a storm the castle, right? They might need to do certain physical things in order to achieve their internal goal. Your character's internal and external goals will be mirroring each other, similar but somewhat different. So for example, if you have a character and their internal goal is to fall in love, for example, because the lie they tell themselves is they don't deserve it, but they really want to fall in love, right? And so their arc in the end is them figuring out that they do deserve it, and that won't be dependent on another person. They will meet a person if you're writing a romance, but their internal rejection of the lie will have nothing to do with that person. It will have to do with all the things that happen to them, the plot that happened to them within the story. And so now they reject the lie and they realize, you know what, I do deserve to love, and they will reach their final goal. But throughout the story, the external goal for them could be to just get a date with this crush of theirs that they had, that they saw in a coffee shop, but they never got their name and they don't know what they are, right? And so that's how the two will work. In a way, their external goal of meeting this person, finding out who they are, where they're from, sounds creepy, not in a creepy way, I promise. But that external goal all leads them to this kind of a similar internal goal, just in a different way. It's almost, one is more deep, kind of rooted within them, and the other one is more surface, but they're both really good positive goals that will help with that arc, right? If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense. And then another thing you want to think about is you want to understand the difference between what your character wants and what they truly need. This is another thing that you want to work into their arc, because you want them at some point to finally realize what they need. Because when they finally realize what it is they need, not what they want, because you could want $1 million, but what you truly might need is like a family or a puppy or something, so they're very different. And so when your character truly understands what they need, and they realize that it's not what they thought they wanted, that is usually when they trigger something in themselves that makes them reject the lie, and thus they become who they really are. So you can see how everything kind of works hand in hand here. But you want to think about all of these things when you're developing your character arc. You want to think about the kind of arc they'll have. So like all the things that we talked about. You want to think about the goal, the lie, their true selves. You want to think about external and internal goals. And you want to think about what the difference is between their want and their need. And if you can think of those, you can go into as much detail as you want. I would recommend using the sheets that I provided because they have just enough detail, but not so much it'll drive you crazy. But you can expand on those too. But if you start kind of looking at it from this perspective and at least getting those base points down, I can guarantee you your characters will be much stronger. They'll be much more believable, and your readers will root for them a lot more, because at the end of the day, your readers subconsciously are waiting for that character arc, and they're waiting for that development. And so you want to provide it for them in a way that truly makes sense and in a way that is satisfactory, but also is realistic. Even in fantasy, you can have realistic character arcs, and they usually are human on some level, even if they're not human or a different species or something. So that's what I have for you about character arcs. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you found it helpful. Make sure if you haven't signed up for the resource library that you do that. It is a newsletter, but the only time that I will be emailing you if you're on the newsletter is to let you know that a new video went up on this channel, or if I've added some kind of resource that I think you'll be interested to the library. So you'll get sparse emails probably like once a week just about when videos drop, because that's how often I post videos on here. I will not take offense if you want to just sign up for the resource library and then you unsubscribe. Absolutely will not take offense. I just want to provide as much for you guys as I can. And I think that resource library is a very good start to do that on top of this channel. So as always, thank you so much for watching the channel, for subscribing if you subscribed. If you haven't and you want to, I really appreciate it. And then if you can give this video a thumbs up, that will be super awesome too. So with that said, stay magical, everyone, and I will talk to you next week. Bye.